Professor Dinesh Varshney is joining us on the broadcast. We'll also have our other esteemed panelists joining us on the show. Professor Varshney, I want to come to you first and take in a perspective from you. As far as the remark of RSS Chief Mohan Bhagwat is concerned, is it really a communal statement, like the Kerala Chief Minister really said, or this should be seen in the larger perspective of a population control law that we require?
Anusha, I fully agree with Comrade Penerai vision, and our stand is very clear. This is absolutely a communal statement on the Dussehra address of the Mohan Bhagwat ji, the RSS chief. You see, they on the one hand side they talk of that everybody benefit should be given. Another side they talk of communalism. I would like to ask one thing. When there is a decline in fertility rate, though little higher among the Muslim community than the Hindu community, even if you take one child policy, the minority community number will increase larger or the minority number will increase larger. You don't need to be a demographic expert in this thing. You see, it is not a population imbalance. It is a policy imbalance. You yourself has covered those 2 points. I will just to repeat in another manner. Look, every country which have availed any social reform or society reform has availed through economic emancipation and widespread scientific education by creating the scientific temperament. But what RSS is promoting is the Hindu child is a God gift. Other children are not God gift. This cannot go on.
Okay.
You have to go for education to all. Education at free of cost. But new education policy of Prime Minister Modi's government is to go for privatization of education, have higher fees. The marginalized is already away from the higher education and middle class education. Middle school education.
Okay, point
they
taken.
Will further go away.
Point taken. I also want to bring in and introduce other guests. Professor Sangeet Ragi, who's a political analyst, is joining us on the broadcast. Mr. Atiq Ur Rehman, who's an Islamic scholar. AR Nanda, who's a population expert, and Manu Gaur, who's the president of TAXAB and a population expert, is also joining us on the broadcast. Professor Sangeet Ragi, I'm coming to you. Is the issue as simple as to be divided between the binaries of communal and non-communal? Simply speaking, the majority population of any nation decides in many ways the temperament of that country. There are various scholars, there are various researchers that would show that one of the reasons that India has remained an outlier and a democratic nation is largely because the temperament of its majority community.
You are perfectly right, Anusha. And economic emancipation, we have seen how Russia and China have behaved, the Soviet Union behaved. You know, when Soviet Union disintegrated, it disintegrated and went back to its ethnic roots and religious roots. So 70 years experimentation into economic nationalism couldn't dilute their, the ethnic identity. Second point, the secular communal binary is the real fraud on Indian political system. When you make policy, you have a minority commission. Why? If you have a majority and minority discourse, it means there is a religion, element of religion that you count in. Third thing, a population is not just a population. It reflects the ethnic identity, the community identity. Your liberal democracy project, the basic fundamental is that individuals should make a choice what is good and what is bad for you, and then you make your preferences in terms of voting.
There's one more point, and you may include it.
Then probably you will get the
Mr. Mohan Bhagwat did not mention any particular community.
Yes.
But it's quite interesting that there's a response coming in from certain sections.
Mr. Mohan Bhagwat,
I'll come to you, Professor Varshney. Professor Varshney, I'll come to you. Let him speak, I'll come to you.
I'm not representing here any organization. I am here as a political analyst, and this is the area which I love the most. There is a research of mine in this area, and I am published in this area, and therefore I am saying that, look, once upon a time, Afghanistan was part of India. The religion of the community changed and it is no more part of that. Pakistan once upon was a part of India. Bangladesh was once upon a part of India. But the religious demography also has its own political identity. when you say that, when you start talking about the elections, you say that
nations are not carved out of imaginations of people. Nations are made by people. Professor Varshney, I'll come to you. Mr. Atiq Ur Rehman, I want you to become a part of the discussion and respond to what Professor Sangeet Ragi has said. Let's address the elephant in the room. Somewhere, the entire discourse has become about the Muslim community. Though Mohan Bhagwat did not mention the Muslim community, I have heard that statement that he had made, but it has become about the Muslim community. And somewhere often this argument is made in the public domain that the population of this community is rising disproportionately, and somewhere it's some kind of a threat to the nation. Respond to that argument, directly.
Well, Anusha, I would have agreed with Mr. Sangeet Ragi also and Mr. Mohan Bhagwat also if the experts would have told us that the rate of fertility in the Muslims are so high that in these many years they will be overpowering the Hindu population. They will be crossing a limit wherein it is a cause of concern.
Okay.
No expert so far has, come out with any facts and figures. And I must tell you that not today. This is a, phenomena and an obsession with the Muslim population of RSS since its inception in 1925. Since those days, they are telling the majority community that if you do not take care of the Muslim population, they will surpass you. And in the 1990s, I, as a researcher with Dr. Rafiq Zakaria, we came out with a book, Widening Divide and Insight into Hindu-Muslim Relations. We devoted a chapter towards this, wherein Dr. Zakaria pinpointed that the rate of fertility in the Muslim community, if deliberately, in an organized and a conspiracy way also, if the Muslims decide to overpower and overpopulate the Hindu population, they would be taking 365 years to do so.
Okay.
What I am telling is,
allow me to argue.
I'll come to you.
Is so serious about the debate on population and so concerned about the population and the figures of India, he should come out with real facts, expert opinion, not a communally sectarian approach towards population.
Respond to one thing before I take a response from the other guest. What Mohan Bhagwat said, and I want you to argue this substantially. I have the statement of what he made, in front of me. How was it sectarian? He did not mention any community. He said population explosion is a problem. He cited the example of East Timor, Kosovo, and various other nations which have, seceded recently and formed their own national identity. He also reminded us of the partition and the pain of partition. How was the statement communal? Help me understand that.
Well, the mentioning of East Timor, the mentioning of Kosovo, and the mentioning of partition, the causes and the politics at that particular time was not only religion. Anusha, not only religion. This is sectarian, this is communal, mentioning East Timor and Kosovo. Thereby, what I am telling is, if it is not communal and not sectarian, then why not come with the policies of emancipation, educational and the socio-economic upliftment of the Muslim community? Because this is the core of the population.
The economic point I do take. Professor Sangeet Ragi, a quick response from you, and then I want to bring in my other guest into the discussion.
There are plenty of researches. There is no need for Muslim population to overtake the Hindu population. When partition was inflicted on this country, the population of Muslim was only 23%, and they inflicted partition on this country. In last 70 years, when in 1951, after partition, the Muslim population was 9.6. Now it is closer to 18%. In the last census, it was 14.6 or around 15%, but unofficially it is said to be around close to 20%. And this has completely changed the demography of Bengal, demography of Assam, demography of Western Uttar Pradesh, and also let me finish it. And the whole political narrative in last 70 years has completely changed. Sartan se juda openly coming
Professor
out on
Ragi,
roads.
I'm going to just spell it out for you.
Essentially
what you're arguing if that there is a disproportionate rise in the population of the Muslim community, it is going to split the country into different parts. Is that your argument? I mean, a highly controversial and a charged statement.
Yes, my argument is very simple. If the Muslim population goes beyond a certain point, this is going to create danger for this country.
How and why?
Islamization.
How and why?
Because the numerical proportion, rising numerical proportion of Islam is going to inflict the Islamic agenda on this country.
It's going to politically translate,
yes,
is what you're saying. Okay. Mr. AR Nanda, please come into the discussion. And you're a person who would be able to tell us this story from the statistic point of view. We're talking about the economics, the underprivileged status of the Muslim community. The Sachar committee report actually recognized that huge portions of the Muslim population actually live in ghettos and have economic status like the SC/ST community or the so-called Dalit communities of this country. Is the reason economic? According to you, what is the story that data really tells us?
Yes, the real story is that, irrespective of the religious community-wise data, irrespective of the religious, denomination, across the country, across various states and various districts, the socio-economic statistics data, the data on education, educational attainment, literacy, and economic empowerment, if you take all this, then what has been said about the demographic imbalance, it is there. It doesn't refer to a particular, maybe in some areas, some districts, their particular community is disproportionately higher than the other community, but that's a situation which is generated both by mostly by migration after partition, and also later on the migration from Bangladesh and of course to Assam and all that, So this is the situation, and by and large, if you see the confusion between population growth rate or fertility rate and what is called as population momentum, you see the growth rate has been coming down.
Yes.
The fertility has been coming down.
Compared to
as
their own
Census
numbers.
Commissioner of India in 1990, own number, So that has been coming down sharply, more sharper in some communities. I am not saying of religious only.
Okay.
Some communities who are deprived or who are that type of thing.
Sir, to what extent, extending your argument to Manu Gaur, to what extent do economic factors really play a role in the population growth of a certain community? How intrinsically is it linked to the educational and economic status of a community?
Anusha, I want to explain one thing, that what is population imbalance. If we see in terms of taxpayers and in comparison with taxpayers and the dependent population, taxpayer population and dependent population of our country, yes, it is population imbalance. When we see in terms of natural resources and the dependent population of the country on that natural resources, yes, it is population imbalance. When we see in terms of lifestyle, employment, anything, yes, income in comparison with all these things, this is called population imbalance. I want to give you one data. What is the we have the authentic latest data of our population is the census report of 2011. According to the 2011 census report, there were nearly 34 crores married women in the country at that time. Among them, nearly 18 crores married women have 2 or less than 2 kids, and around 15.75 crores married women have 3 and more than 3 kids. So what do you think, how can you think about the fertility rate of 2.1? The data itself is saying is showing the real picture.
All right.
According to
I
NHFS 5
have
survey,
yes, sir. Make your point. Finish your point.
According to NHFS 5 survey, it told that our fertility rate TFR has came down to 2.1. This is just a sample survey of only
once again, if we have a census in the country, we might have different figures really coming up.
Definitely.
I want to bring in once again Professor Dinesh Varshney and Atiq Ur Rehman into the discussion, and both of you may address this point. Political Islam has been cited by Professor Sangeet Ragi and various other people in the public domain as a key concern if there is a disproportionate growth in the Muslim population of the country. In fact, there are various people who attribute this growth to the partition, though I agree that there were various factors which were responsible for the partition of the country, including this factor. But it's also a fact that none of the Muslim majority country across the world is a democratic nation, Mr. Atiq Ur Rehman.
True. That's the reality.
So that's another reason we should not worry about.
Worry about what?
We should worry about.
The secular.
That's the reason that we should worry about. That except for
Sir,
Turkey, there is no democracy at all.
Let him finish his point. Make your point.
Mr. Sangeet Ragi, please. Because the secular aspect of the Indian polity, and I would have believed, if there would have been an RSS within the Muslim community. There is no RSS, Anusha, within the community of Muslims.
So fundamentalism within Islam is a problem. I think you'd accept it.
Yeah, the fundamental aspect of any religion is, at both ends.
No.
Fundamentalism of Hindutva forces and fundamentalism of the Islamist forces. But nobody goes by the demographic element as RSS goes, Anusha.
Please.
You have to
Sir, but you haven't
the
responded
fact
to my question. I asked you a very direct factual question. None of the Muslim majority country is a democratic country. Does that tell us that politically speaking, often it's the fundamentalist element that try to run the system and not really the liberal elements within a certain religion?
Can I add to
I'll
this question?
I'll come to you.
Anusha, the beauty of India is it's Ganga, Jamni, Tehzeeb and secularism.
Okay.
Wherein nobody is trying to overpower anybody.
Professor